Hey there, YouTube. This is CFL Fanatic once again giving you my picks for Week 4 in the 2010 CFL season. It's been quite an interesting season to start, as I've said before. Last week, unfortunately, I didn't get a chance to watch too many of the games, except for Calgary-Toronto, which was a great game to watch. Came right down to the wire, but the Argos managed to hold on. Neither team played great, but you know what? The Argos, in the end, had more fight than the Stamps, and in the end, that's what's going to win you games. So, yeah, it's gotten off to an interesting start. Argos win 2 games in a row for the first time since 2007. So they broke a very long streak there. All right, last week, how did I do? 4-0! Oh my goodness! The first time being 4-0 since I started uploading picks last year. Chris Schultz was 3-1. So once again, I squeaked by Chris Schultz and beat him by 1 win. And that takes my total to 8-4. And Chris Schultz's total, of course, now at 5-7. I'm 3 solid wins ahead of him. So I got to keep this up. Got to keep up with the pace. Hopefully another 4-0 week. That would help nicely. But probably not going to happen, but you never know. All right, so for my longtime fans, CFL Fanatic's 30-second rundown. Wow, haven't done this in a while. Talk about each team for 30 seconds. All right, first up, the Montreal Alouettes. They're not a superpower like they were last year, by any stretch of the imagination. They're really looking like an average team right now. They're 2-1, so it's a solid start, but you know what? They didn't play that well against Edmonton, and their offense didn't play that well against BC. So you know what? Average team at best. All right, on to the Argos, who are looking a lot better than the last couple of years. Although then again, that's not saying a whole lot. But I have to say, I like the way that they came out and they fought to the end against Calgary. Usually the Argos give themselves a nice lead and then blow it all and lose the game. But this time they were coming from behind and they orchestrated a comeback. That's not usually like the Argos. Cleo Lemon yet to pass over 200 yards, but you know what? He's working his way up out of the rookie spot. He's going to get better. All right, Hamilton Tiger Cats. It took a while for them to get into a rhythm, but they seem to have developed a pretty nice one against Winnipeg last week. Finally managed to find some things that were clicking for them. Before that, Marquay McDaniel was... not Marquay McDaniel, no. Marcus Thigpen, sorry about that. He was pulling the team, but now Kevin Glenn seems to have gotten into a bit of a rhythm, so I think the Ticats could be improving. All right, on to the Bombers. Winnipeg. What happened? They put up a great show against Hamilton to start off the season, but then they kind of dropped the ball a little bit against Toronto, and unfortunately they dropped the ball again against Hamilton last week. And they've got Edmonton, so Edmonton's not a great team. In fact, they're the worst in the league this year, so this is their chance to try and build themselves back up again, so hopefully they do that. All right, on to the Riders, and they right now are looking like the Montreal Alouettes of last year. Not too stoppable at the moment. They're doing very well. Outstanding team, and but I think they are beatable. They are beatable. It will be tough. It's not going to be an easy match, but you know they can be beaten. But it doesn't look like it's going to be too much in the near future. All right, on to the Stampeders. I have to say I'm not liking Calgary right now. They had a lot of discipline issues against Toronto. Lots of penalties that really ended up hurting them in a game as close as that one. Could have been the difference between them winning and losing. So they got to stay on that. They got Saskatchewan next week, so the schedule doesn't do them any favors. They're going to have to work their way back up. All right, on to Edmonton. What can you say about this team? I liked their game against Montreal. They're the opposite because they're not a bad team. I mean, you look at the games that they played this year. Look at Montreal. They were dominating that game for 3 quarters, then fell apart at the end. Look at Saskatchewan. They dominated the first half, then dominated the third quarter. It just fell apart at the end. They got to keep at this. And BC, likewise. BC has an offense that right now is, quite frankly, non-existent. It's not that their offense is non-existent, but they're not prominent, and they're having a lot of trouble getting into the end zone at least, and even putting points up on the board. So BC's got to keep at that if they want to have any chance of success. They need to build up their offense. And this has been CFL Fanatics 30-second rundown. All right, on to Week 4 in the 2010 CFL season. First up, Hamilton Tiger Cats taking on the Montreal Alouettes. Now, this is Montreal's home opener, and you know what? Montreal, like I said, they're not that great a team. Even BC was kind of seemed like the more dominant team in that game, at least for a little while last week. And Hamilton obviously had a bit of trouble getting into a rhythm, like I said, to start. And, you know, I'm expecting Hamilton to start improving now. They've gotten on their game, and they're starting to do better. But you know what? Hamilton playing Montreal in Montreal, their home opener, I'm going to have to go with the Montreal Alouettes to win this one. All right, on to Friday Night Football. BC Lions at Toronto Argonauts. Now, this is interesting because I never thought that I would actually have to say that the logical choice is to pick the Argos, but in this scenario, it honestly is. I mean, look at BC. They don't have much of an offense, and that's coming into a Toronto defense that is getting better with every week. But Toronto's defense has to start making tackles. They have to get better at that. That gave Nick Lewis an easy touchdown for Calgary in the game against Toronto. That could have been easily prevented. So they have to wrap up. They have to tackle. But, you know, Cleo Lemon, I think he's going to get better. The offense is going to get better. And I am going to have to take the Argos to win this one. All right. Edmonton and Winnipeg. Now, this is an interesting game because it's two teams that right now are faltering. Edmonton, like I said, they're just having trouble finishing games. And you know what? This is a game where the pressure is going to be on. If they don't win this, they are 0-4 to start the season, and that is not good. Likewise, Winnipeg won their first one in a dominant performance over Hamilton, but their next two were not great. So Winnipeg is also looking to get back. Chris Schultz is picking Edmonton to win this game, and Edmonton seems like a logical choice, but I think you can't overlook the fact that Winnipeg is a better team than they've been playing, and they haven't been getting the results that they want. I think Winnipeg is going to come out with a bit more fight than Edmonton, and I am going to go with the Bombers to win this one. All right, on to the final game, Saskatchewan Roughriders and Calgary Stampeders. Always a great game in McMahon Stadium when these two are playing, because so many Saskatchewan fans show up for the day. But you know what? Saskatchewan looking dominant. They dominated Edmonton in that other game. They came back and orchestrated a comeback to win. And you know what? Calgary is starting to falter. I'm not liking their defense too much. I'm going to go with Saskatchewan to win this game. Alright, so those are my picks. Montreal defeating Hamilton, Toronto defeating BC, Winnipeg defeating Edmonton, and Saskatchewan defeating Calgary. And that is it for CFL Fanatics Week 4 picks. I've been meaning to try and get Ryan and Ben back, and we can have another panel discussion. Hopefully that'll be next week. So have a good week, watch the games, and I'll see you then.